Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are going to take a tour of one of the most brilliant pieces of engineering in the entire human body. I'm talking about the complex machinery that lets you do, well, pretty much everything. Bend, twist, run, jump, you name it.
All right, but before we dive in, let's start with a quick question, just to get you thinking. Think about it. From your knuckles, to your elbows, to your knees, what is the single most common type of joint in your body? The one that lets you pull off all that amazing movement.
If you said the synovial point, you are spot on. That is the star of our show today. And what makes it so special, what makes it the main event, is its defining feature, a fluid-filled cavity. That little detail makes it fundamentally different from every other kind of joint in your body.
So here's the game plan for our little tour. We're going to start with the core components inside the joint capsule itself. Then we'll look at the support system holding it all together. After that, we'll get into how it's powered and how it feels things. And finally, we'll take a look at what happens when things, well, when they start to wear out.
All right, let's get right into it. We're going to start with the structure that literally holds the whole thing together, the part that defines the joint in the first place.
I want you to picture the articular capsule like a tough but flexible sleeve that wraps around the entire joint. And it's not just some separate piece floating there, oh no. It's actually continuous with the periosteum. That's the outer layer of the bones themselves. It creates this perfectly sealed little world for the joint.
Now, what's really cool is this capsule isn't just one simple layer. It's actually got two, and they each have a super important job. You've got the tough outer fibrous layer. Think of that as the reinforced wall, providing all the strength and support. But then, on the inside, you have the synovial layer. This part is packed with blood vessels, and it's basically the factory that churns out the joint's essential motor oil.
Okay, let's go a little deeper inside. We get to the surfaces that are actually touching, the ends of the bones. Now, these aren't rough and bumpy. No way. They're capped with this incredible material called articular cartilage. It's a special type, hyaline cartilage, and it is unbelievably smooth. We're talking smoother than ice sliding on ice.
And it's got two main jobs, both absolutely vital. First, it acts like a super slick bearing, cutting down on friction so the bones can just glide past each other with almost no effort. And second, it's a shock absorber, a protective cushion, soaking up the impact from every single step you take.
So what's the secret sauce that makes all that smooth, frictionless movement possible? Well, it's the liquid the cartilage is constantly swimming in, the synovial fluid. This stuff really is the joint's high-performance motor oil.
And this amazing fluid is doing not one, not two, but three key things to make the whole system work perfectly.
Yeah, this stuff is a real multitasker. It lubricates the cartilage, right, for that smooth glide. It also distributes nutrients to keep the cartilage healthy, which is critical, because cartilage doesn't have its own blood supply. And on top of all that, it adds another layer of shock absorption. Incredible.
Okay, so we've seen the inside. Now let's zoom out and look at the external structures. See, the joint capsule isn't doing all this work by itself. It's got a whole support system of accessory structures that give it extra stability and help cut down on wear and tear.
First up, we have the accessory ligaments. The easiest way to think of these, they're like the joint safety belts. They're these incredibly tough bands of tissue that literally strap the bones together. And their job is to stop the joint from moving too far or bending in a way it's not supposed to.
All right, next up, the joint's own little self-lubricating cushions. These things are called bursae, and they're exactly what they sound like, tiny little sacs filled with fluid almost like mini water balloons. And they are very strategically placed right where things like tendons or muscles might otherwise rub against the bone.
Their whole purpose is simple, but it is so important. They sit right in those potential friction spots to let tendons and muscles glide smoothly over the bone. This protects the joint from getting worn down from friction over a whole lifetime of movement. It's brilliant, really.
Okay, next stop on our tour, we're going to look at the hidden wiring and plumbing. I mean, how does the joint get its power? How does it know where it is in space? And how does it get its all-important blood supply?
You know, there's this really elegant little rule in anatomy that helps you understand how joints are wired up. It's called Hilton's Law, and the principle is just genius in its simplicity. It says that the nerves supplying a joint also supply the muscles that move that joint and the skin covering those muscles. One nerve, multiple jobs. So what does that super efficient wiring mean? Well, it means the same nerves are pulling double duty. They're sending proprioceptive signals, that's the fancy word for how your brain knows where your arm is in space even with your eyes closed, and they're also sending nociceptive signals, which is how you feel pain if the joint gets injured.
And the blood supply?
just as cleverly designed. You see, instead of just one single artery that could get pinched shut when you, say, bend your knee all the way, the arteries form this rich network all around the joint, with tons of little connections between them. This basically guarantees that no matter how you bend or twist, blood can always find a way to get through. It's a fantastic design.
Okay, for our final stop on this tour, we're going to shift gears a bit and look at the clinical side of things. What happens when this incredible, nearly perfect system starts to break down? And that brings us to osteoarthritis. It's the most common form of arthritis out there, and it is a direct result of the breakdown of the very structures we've just been talking about. Specifically, it's about the wearing away of that smooth, protective articular cartilage. Just look at the difference here. A healthy joint has that thick, smooth, glistening cartilage, but in an osteoarthritic joint, that beautiful cartilage has been worn away. And the result? You get bone grinding on bone. That leads directly to friction, which causes pain, stiffness, and over time, it can even erode the bone itself. Now, while that kind of wear and tear is definitely the most common cause, it's really important to know it's not the only one. Arthritis can also get kicked off by an infection that gets right into the joint. Or it can be from autoimmune issues, like in rheumatoid arthritis. It can even happen as a reaction to an infection somewhere totally different in your body. And all this brings us to one final big question for you to think about. Seeing just how intricate, how brilliant our joints really are, what's the best way for us to preserve their function for a lifetime? The health of these amazing little machines is truly in our hands. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.